Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Bradley Butler, and I am the Executive Director and Curator at Main Street Arts in Clifton Springs, New York. I am joined by Milo Berezin, Taylor Callaway, and Breanne Rupp, three of the 15 artists in this year's The Cup the Mug exhibition, which is an online exhibition of drinking vessels and runs through Saturday, December 7th. You can view this exhibition on our website, mainstreetartscs.org. And when you're there, you can view it in two different ways. You can either go to the shop page and view every single cup that is in the show, or you can go on to the exhibition page of the site and view work by specific artists one at a time and see the work that way, and also learn a little bit more about each of them. So thank you to the three of you for joining us today. Looking forward to getting a look into your studios and hearing a little bit more about the process. But before we hear one word from any of you, I'm going to speak on your behalf a little bit more and look at a few pieces by each of you, all of which are included in this exhibition. Raised in the woods of rural Alaska, Milo Berezin moved to Pittsburgh to study sculpture and printmaking. The son of a production potter, he rediscovered the joy of clay while working as an arts administrator and teaching artist and a teaching artist at a community ceramics nonprofit. Taylor Callaway received their BA in Interdisciplinary Visual Arts from the University of Washington in 2014. They started their clay journey after graduation by taking classes and apprenticing in several community clay studios. Taylor lives in Seattle, Washington, where they make pots and work as a studio manager at Pottery Northwest. And Breanne Rupp currently works in St. Augustine, Florida, where she runs a co-op style studio called Makespace. She grew up in the Republic of Panama, graduated with BFA from Flagler College, and moved to San Francisco for a 9-year postgrad. There, she worked in the restaurant industry and nonprofit sector of arts education. And it was through working in restaurants that she participated, or I'm sorry, she was inspired to try making functional art and took up wheel throwing. Since moving back to Florida, she has opened Makespace as a ceramics and screen printing studio. Makespace has studio members, classes for adults and kids, hosts guest teachers in other mediums, organizes grassroots events, and provides scholarships to local youth. I'm going to bring us all back here. So again, thank you. And I think we'll keep it in alphabetical order like I usually do. So Milo, you're lucky contestant number one. And I'd just like to start just with a very basic, uh, um, I know it says you rediscovered clay and the son of a production potter. So I feel like I know the answer, but maybe you want to expand on what got you into clay a little bit more.
Yeah, so I actually avoided clay for a long time because yeah, my mom was a full-time production potter from like the 80s until fairly recently, last few years. And so that was her thing. So I was around it a lot and exposed to it a lot. And she was a thrower, she was cranking them out. And the arts were very much part of my childhood, my life. And then when I went to school, I mostly focused on printmaking and on some 3D, some small metals. I was kind of all over the place. Had a hard time just sort of sticking to one thing because I really love it all. And then through working for this community nonprofit studio, ceramic studio, it was actually we had a Kevin Snipes was a visiting artist and did a ton of workshops. We were working really closely together, and that it just kind of clicked that you can do all that surface stuff on clay. It doesn't just have to be like dip and go, or I really hate glazing, but I love decorating. And it just that was sort of it for me. It's all of these really processes that are really similar to drawing, really similar to printmaking, and best of all, it's like it's a canvas that has an inside and an outside and a bottom and a top, and it's not so precious, this thing on the wall you can't touch, like you're literally putting your mouth on it, which is sort of amazing. It's like art you can put on your mouth. And that was just it. Yeah. I didn't look back. um Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, when you grow up surrounded by something like that, even though, especially as artists, we think art is exciting, right? But it's not as exciting when it's something, oh, that's something my parent does. But it takes maybe expanding beyond what you've seen and absorbed as a kid, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Cool. Great. Well, thank you. And Taylor, how about you?
So I went to UW, as you mentioned, and I actually didn't take, I mostly did painting and drawing in school, and I didn't really know that ceramics was a thing that you could do. Like, I didn't really know pottery was like an art form that people did. I mostly thought about like production pottery, like Target kind of stuff as like that's ceramics. And then I took my very last quarter in college, I took a hand building class, hand throwing class, and I loved it. And then I graduated. Um, and I was like, okay, I still want to keep doing this. So I just started taking classes at my local community studio, which was Pottery Northwest at the time. So I took classes there for a couple years. I became a work study student there so that I could take free classes. I was working as a house cleaner for 5 years. So I did a lot of customer service jobs and just did pottery for fun. Um, but through the apprenticeship, I learned a lot of studio management, studio tech skills. And I realized like, I actually want this to be my job. I want this to be more of my life. So I started working as like a studio assistant in another studio, still making pottery on the side. It's always been kind of like making the pottery has kind of been my side thing. And then now I work as a studio manager, which is amazing. I love working as a studio manager, and I work at Pottery Northwest, which is great. Kind of full circle. It's where I started like really getting serious about ceramics. So yeah, that's how I got into it. It's just I kind of randomly took a class, and then just never stopped taking classes.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that I hear that a lot from people in ceramics. Like, they took a class on a whim or they just tried something and it kind of took hold. But it's cool to hear that I guess you and Milo both came full circle in your own ways around ceramics. You,
Mhm.
going back to the place where you started, and then Milo realizing, wow, ceramics were it from the beginning for me.
Mhm.
Very cool. All right, well, great. Well, thank you. And Breanne, how about you?
I loved hearing both of your stories because I resonated with two different parts, and it was yeah, it's really awesome to hear how you guys got there. Um, I the college that I went to didn't really have a ceramics program, and when they started, it was like my senior year, and it was much more of a like concept over craft. So we were doing ceramics as a sculpture medium, and not necessarily necessarily understanding like the kind of science or things behind what we were doing. And my main focus was printmaking and screen printing and painting and drawing. And so when I graduated from school, I moved to San Francisco, and I worked in nonprofits and taught always in a 2D sense in printmaking, and then worked in restaurants at the same time. And one of the chefs I worked for was taking a wheel throwing class, and he brought a plate in and was like, I made this. And I was like, what do you mean you made that? Like, you can make art and then it can have a function too. Like, really? All this time I'm just making, I mean, like screen printing, we wear it, but just making art to go into shows. And I was like trying to, go to grad school and all of that. And I took a wheel throwing class with him, and the studio owner offered me a work trade position. And I ended up working there for like 4 years. And same thing as Taylor was saying, like, was just like, this is what I want to do. And when I moved to Florida, I kept looking for the right place to do it. And now I have my studio, and I have people doing work trade for me. And it's so exciting, like sharing that and kind of passing that on, and seeing everyone get all excited. And yeah, so it's such a great community. It's such a good thing that brings people together.
Yeah, and I think that the community aspect of ceramics, and I've talked about this on several of these kind of videos in the past, but it's something, especially as a painter like myself, who works alone in a studio, because you don't really need shared equipment. I don't need to have a big expensive thing that gets very hot in the corner of my studio, which is sometimes difficult depending. So. I just think that that's such an interesting thing for, uh, the type of materials that require equipment, I feel like that's where our community is built around because you have to share in that. So, printmaking, ceramics, glass, a lot of things like that. So, it's interesting that you all had your experiences. You kind of go through the ranks of, I go to a place like this, I run or work at a place like that. So it's just interesting to see how that kind of keeps moving. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to talk about with each of you, or have kind of a little discussion, was surface design, because each of you activate the surface in different ways. Well, two of you in similar ways. Milo and Breanne use carving and kind of decorating the surface that way with drawing, and then Taylor using more geometric or design kind of pared down design. Would anyone like to talk about maybe where the imagery started and where it ended up, or what kind of images go on there and why?
Sure. Dive in. So I the work I've been making lately is sort of follows this formula of like this pattern background, this sort of translucent layers, and then like an animal figure in the front saying something that's sometimes silly or sometimes vulnerable or sometimes snarky, depending. But it this line of work it actually started really randomly. I was reading an article about bunny rabbits as pets, and I just read this line that was just, it said, rabbits have complex emotional needs. And I just like stopped in my tracks and was like, bunny, me too. And I just had to, I immediately went to the studio. Well, as soon as Child Allowed, went to the studio, made this plate. And then it just kind of spurred this whole line of these sort of just like silly critters and text. Um, for, for me, I really like I like I like the most when they're a little vulnerable. When I feel like there's a little more of me in them, and I like my favorite thing about making this line of work is seeing how people connect to it and seeing like which one makes people really freak out or just kind of like jump at. That feels really good.
Yeah, and do you have? I mean, does the text come before the animal that you like, or how does that work for
It
you?
depends. It really depends. A lot of times I'm just like, oh, people are asking me to make an armadillo or something, and so then I'm thinking about qualities of an armadillo. They're armored, they're shielded, they're protecting themselves, and then what kinds of like concepts go with that, like
Mm.
protecting your heart or rolling into a ball, having a ball. Like I don't know. I kind of just do sort of a little brainstorming session from there, and sometimes it's really obvious, and sometimes it's not, and sometimes I have to make four different things for the same like starting idea, but it varies.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. Great. Well, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Sure.
Are your surfaces, are they like painted with slip and then carved into, or is it?
Yeah, so it's like, so here I grabbed a piece. So like it's a red clay, which you can see in the foot, and then it's got brushed slip, it's got underglaze, it's got another layer of brushed slip, and then everything's carved back down to the red clay. So I really like how it kind of peeks through and creates some variation and a little bit of surprise, or that's really interesting to me. So yeah.
It's so the colors are so bright too,
Thanks, Amico.
and with the white, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely endorse asking of questions among each other for sure. Great. And who would like to talk about their surfaces or imagery next?
I can talk about my surfaces. So I I used to do a lot more like drawing on my pots, and then recently I've started doing just much more simpler surface design. Milo, I'm sure you know like how much time it takes to carve a pot, like a whole drawing onto a pot. And I was like, wow, I really would rather spend more time just focusing on the form, and the colors. So that's why I started doing simpler things. I'm like looking around for stuff that I could show off. I have like this, I've been doing a lot more hand building recently. So I'm still sticking with like just like kind of bright colors. I've been doing a lot more like textural stuff. The stuff that's in the show online is all thrown. I love throwing, and I usually decorate those just with simple lines, grids, and like glaze frit. So just like little pieces of glaze that are fired, and then I just push them into the clay. It's kind of like a terrazzo effect. Um, and they look really nice in the black clay too. But yeah, the stuff that's in the show is just kind of my simple, pared down designs that I feel um, I'm really into like the design of like childhood and just really simple shapes and colors. Because it's kind of nostalgic for me. Thinking about like toys from like the early 90s and early 2000s. Um, just design at that time. That's just like a lot of weird lines and little shapes kind of flinging around. So that's where my inspiration for my pieces come from.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, thinking about things from your childhood that show up. It's interesting as time goes on, the more that I see things that are a callback to things like that, and I think I mean, that is something that like will instantly resonate with someone else who had that same experience or something similar, which I think is a really cool thing. It's like making something for your own generation, whether you mean to or not, you're making it for yourself, but then you make it
Hmm.
for others who had that same, experience. So not that only happens when you do things just like you described, but I
Hmm.
think that's a really cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's part of it is like I want to remind people of like, hey, remember when you were a kid and like things were really simple and fun? Hold this mug and think about that.
Yeah. And thinking about the other work that you do, the hand building work with the more texture, I mean, do you have, um, do you kind of go back and forth just because you get tired of one, or is it one is more time consuming, or some combination?
Yeah, hand building is definitely more time consuming for me. Throwing's a lot faster. I just have more practice with it. I've been trying to do more hand building recently because it is more challenging. And I kind of prefer a lot of the stuff that I buy, the ceramics that I buy are hand built. And those are my favorite pieces. Those are the mugs that I like reach for again and again. Just because I like the feel of the texture. It's very like tactile, which I think adds another that's also like a childhood thing of like tactile toys for kids. So I'm working on getting towards that. So it's not just like visually a reminder of childhood, but also like physically kind of like a fidget object.
Got it. Got it. Great. Well, thanks.
Yeah.
And Breanne?
Yeah, so my work is kind of heavily stenciled. So I don't really carve too much, but I do a lot. I started initially with just using like blue tape and newsprint and wetting it and doing it on, a wet clay mug and using slip. And that was when I first started. And now I use a vinyl cutter. I also do graphic design and with like the printmaking background. I think it was a cafe that I did cups for. I decided to put their logo on it. And so I did the vinyl cutter, and then it kind of like unlocked in my brain where I was like, oh, I can do really, I love a sharp edge. I can do really tiny, sharp things and with the vinyl cutter. So now I use that a lot. I also still use a lot of tape, and I combine the vinyl cutter and sometimes wax resist. So like the black mug, it has like the black glittery glaze inside of the doorways with the vinyl on, and then I put wax resist on that and then dip the whole thing. So, and the checkered mugs, I tape them out with checkers and then paint with underglaze and then wax over the underglaze and then take the tape off and then dip that. So it's a lot of kind of combining those things. And I kind of, as far as imagery goes, just sort of do like whatever I want. So I don't know. I made these mugs with the doorways around Halloween one year, and just this kind of like ambiguous, mystical stairway that leads to these motifs. It's really popular in tattoo culture, and ever since then, I've been putting them on everything and also dissecting the parts and using, the pieces of that and other stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, well, it's cool to see. I mean, you all do this, in all the work that's at least in the Cup show for Main Street Arts, is that you know, it it all has the same kind of imagery, but it's all also very different. And I feel like the more hone in on like a motif or something like that, the more it kind of opens up to more possibilities. Like, you could do limitless variations on the door and stairs,
Mhm.
just it's a really cool thing. So and then that might lead to the whole next, body of work. So yeah.
Yeah, with the vinyl cuts, I always have the positive and the negative. I have the part that I use. So try and like use that other piece and from that creates other things. So it's just like playing and having fun
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
trying not to waste plastic.
Yeah. Well, my wife and I used to make handmade books, and we would like to decorate the covers with like little collage pieces. But each time that you work with collage and say you want to save your scraps, you just keep ending up having smaller little scraps, which you can then use. So, it's kind of like, at some point you have to probably draw the line, but yeah, yeah. Huh. And it's cool too, the way that like a background in graphic design or something like that, and maybe you utilize the laser cutter for that, and then oh wow, I can use it for that. That's a really cool kind of aha moment for you.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, well, I think it's about time we take a little studio tour. And I guess we can go back to Milo. How about that? We'll keep it easy. We'll just go back to alphabetical order.
Okay. Let's see if I can figure out how to flip this. So
Sure.
my studio is typically utter chaos, so I apologize. This is like cleaned up version. My studio is just a room in my house. Um, it is bright and beautiful in the day. One of these days I would really love to rebuild it and have not just like sort of co-opted IKEA tables and random odds and ends. This is sort of my main, like, this is a big work area. I live for my slab roller. Everything I'm making is hand built, using sort of slab coils and slabs and press molds, and then sort of secondary work area. I keep a little like inspiration shelf just of other people's wonderful bright work because it feels good. And then I've been keeping this, trying to like up the photography game. This, you can see the photos you shared were taken right here. To and I do have a wheel. I don't use it a ton. I use it a lot for like cleanup and for making bisque molds. Even though none of my work is thrown. I'm sorry, I share the space with a cat. Let me see. I don't have a lot on hand right now. I kind of got cleared out recently, but I kind of keep some recent work. And then I would not be able to make work at all if not for my giant pile of damp boxes. Because not only as Taylor was saying, it's so really, oops, sorry, I was eating. It's very, very, very slow process. And also I've really built my practice around parenthood. So my first job is parenting, our now 4.5-year-old. And I sort of built up this practice through making work in, during naps in these little tiny chunks of time. So I have to be able to put it in a damp box, pick it up again, put it down, pick it up again. Wheel isn't really very conducive to that. Like there's not a huge cleanup required for hand building. My studio doesn't even have a sink. I have a nice 3-gallon bucket and clean it, dump it, and refresh it in the yard every so often. So yeah, it's yeah, pretty basic hand building studio.
Yeah, but I think, what you said, making work around a nap schedule. I mean, that really shows or is a great example of how, just artists are very resourceful and we're not going to stop making work just because life changes. And, I think that that's a really great way to do it. I mean, it's because it seems like you're still able to be pretty prolific. So
It's definitely shaped my practice a lot. Like it's made me move toward work that is easily, pick up, put down a bowl. I always try to have work at, like 20 different stages. So if I only have 5 minutes, I can go slip a couple cups. If I have more time, I can do some carving. Like no matter what amount of time I have some piece at a stage that I can use that time really well. Um, yeah, so it has definitely had a big impact on how I work and also even what I'm making.
yeah. And going from a community studio to an in-home studio, is there pros and cons that you'd speak to?
I mean, working at home is pretty magical. I do miss the community. I miss having people you can bounce ideas off of and talk to you about what's working. I miss the community aspect, but being able to if I didn't have this, I wouldn't be making work. Like I can't get out very easily, and in this, I can really just take any little sliver of time and get something done. I do have a kiln now, but it's in the garage just because I wanted to avoid fumes. So I'm just schlepping stuff down 2 flights of stairs instead of in a trunk of a car, and it's been great.
Yeah. Great, great, great. Well, thanks for showing us around.
Sure.
Taylor, how about your space?
Yeah, let me see. Let me switch this around. Okay, cool. So let me back up. My studio is part of the larger studio up at Northwest, so it's part of a community studio. So this is kind of I made a sign to say, hey, I'm in a Zoom, because there's people in the studio right now and they know I work here. And usually they come ask me questions, but this is my space. I have this big rack. Those pots are not mine. But also being in a community studio means that I just have stuff in my space that doesn't belong to me, but it's being stored here. So this is my rack, my hand building table. I have a bunch of test tiles here that are like colored clay on my frets. I have slips, underglazes right there that I can reach easily. Um, my wheels in this corner, my little sign. And then up here is like a bunch of kind of seconds and just weird stuff that I can't or don't want to sell. These are my like hand built stuff I've been working on that are more like pinchy textured. A couple throne pieces, and then this little table. It's just like an IKEA table. I keep my clay down here, and then this is just like stuff in progress. So some weirder, like more sculptural mugs I'm working on. Um, yeah, trying to do a combination of hand building and throwing because I really like doing both. Um, and
Oh,
then this
can I
is
just ask
my
can
studio
I just ask a
mates
question quick?
area. Yeah.
So going back to those the cups you just uncovered, is the one
hmm
with that is the blue base with is that all one piece?
Yeah, I connected them. So
Oh
this
wow.
red cup is like thrown, and then this is just like a pinched base with like a weirdo handle.
Yeah.
This guy has like a weirdo pinched base. This one isn't attached, but I think I will attach it. Still needs a handle though.
Yeah, those are really
Yeah,
very cool.
and then I am. Let me switch this back around. I would you like to see like the kiln room or like any other part of the community studio? I
Yeah,
can show you a little
I
bit of that
think
real quick.
these videos have a high percentage of ceramic people that like to watch them,
hmm
and I think that would just be great.
Yeah, let me take you over there. I'll switch around again. But oh yeah, these are some of my favorite tools. So those are some of the tools I use. But yeah, let me take you through. So we okay. So this is our like studio access area where people come in outside of class and work. It's a pretty large because we're near the end of the quarter, so people are just kind of finishing stuff up. This is the hand building class, or sorry, the throwing classroom. We have 17 wheels in here. The glazing area is like in the back there. We have a spray booth back there, and then these are like the wear shelves where people put their stuff. So this is all stuff waiting to be fired, and some bisque that's been fired, and then there might be somebody.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry about that.
That's okay. So I guess, yeah, Breanne, let's see a little bit of your space.
Yeah, I feel like we're like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears of like Milo's like has so much going on in at home, and then you have this like 11 kiln studio, and I'm like in the middle of the two. So my studio is just kind of one big warehouse space. I'm gonna and just one big workspace, and then I have a little front office too, where we have like our 3D printer and stuff. And I'll show you that because actually the bathroom is my favorite room. You'll see why. But I'm gonna flip. Okay, so let's see. So this is the studio. So I was just sitting, I was just sitting there, and we have like our little glazed corner here. We just got wheels. I was actually just a hand building studio for the first 2 years. We just got wheels, and they're kind of on loan from like a local potter. He's teaching the class. We have our drying rack over here, really important. We have a disco alligator because we're in Florida. Um, I don't know. Can you
Makes
guys?
sense.
Yeah. This is one of my studio members here. We have just 2 spots here. She's working on some sculptural, figurative work. This is my little space over here with my wheel, and here's the cups, the little ones from the show. And yeah, other work. I recently started slip casting, so I have all my molds set up here. Our like slab roller, our shelving, and more shelving to come. And then I have 3 kilns. I have this one's my little like tiny workhorse, is so good for tests and jewelry, and I make bolo ties, so that fires a lot of those. And then we have a mini and a big one, and Guy Fieri warning sign. um Hand chair and screen printing stuff. And then this is the front office where we take our breaks for kids class, and I have the 3D printer. So I've been learning how to 3D print and then make plaster molds from that, and then cast the pieces. So that's going. And then the bathroom, as promised, because I put wallpaper on the ceiling and we have a giant fisheye mirror. So yeah. So yeah, that's the studio.
Cool. Now, going back to what you said about recently
Oh,
doing slip casting, was that a big change for you? And did it, do a lot for you to be able to slip cast or?
Yeah, it's, I mean, the thing that I've learned, or the thing that I've like kept telling myself that I've learned doing it, is that it's really not necessarily a shortcut. Where like in my mind before doing it, I was like, oh, I'm gonna bypass all of these things by making these molds, and then I'm just gonna bang, 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 pump this job out. But like maybe one day I'll get there. But in the meantime, like this first project that I did is a barrel. So I'm actually they're bisques right now, so I'm like cleaning them up and glazing them. But it's a form that I had wheel thrown many times in the past, and then I got a big order for it, and so I thought it was a great time to learn slip casting. But as I'm like cleaning them, I'm like, I honestly probably could have thrown these, But the next job I'm doing is this golf ball mug for a golf tournament, and like I could never make 100 of those by hand. So learning where it makes more sense to do that, and where it makes sense to just do the thing that I'm already skilled at.
Yeah, but it is, I would say, not a great feeling to like be to be maybe close to halfway or just over halfway done with something and realize, I could have just done this the way that I was doing it before.
Yeah, I was like about 15 cups in on an order of 50, like just getting the first 15 like out of the kiln, which was really gratifying, but it had taken me so long to get to that point. And I was like, should I just stop and should I just throw them? Like I could be done in a month, but I didn't. I'm almost done now. But yeah, it was a lot. There was a lot of learning. Like it was a lot.
Yeah. But that's something you take forward to the next one then, like you
Mhm.
said. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is. I mean, it is really cool to make a lot of things that look exactly the same. I don't know if it's necessarily something that I want to always be doing, but it's been cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Well, it was really wonderful to chat with all of you and to see your spaces. I think it really, helps to give a little context around, where did that cup come from? I mean, obviously we know that someone made that and that someone is you, but now a little bit more into the process. So that's great. And I want to remind everyone watching that this exhibition, again, online, mainstreetartscs.org, runs through Saturday, December 7th. And you can go to the website, hopefully buy as many cups as possible, and make all the ceramic artists in the show very happy. So, um, but thanks again, and happy potting.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was so nice to see all of you and like see all your spaces.
Yeah,
Likewise.
very cool. I bought a cup last night. I went online to look at everyone's stuff. It was
I saw that come through. Yeah, that was exciting.
like
Yeah.
at midnight. I was like, look at everyone's stuff. And I was like, I gotta do it. There's so
Potters by the most pots.
there's so many good ones. It's such a great lineup. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's really I love this every year, because we base these on recommendations from past years. So would I have come across your work? Maybe, but maybe not. And that's the exciting thing because it's based on who we've known in the past, and it's like becoming a really big group of friends. So yeah,
Cool.
so thanks for being a part of that group.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.